I always wait for the thing to say that I'm recording. Oh, here we go. Hi, good morning, good morning. Um, we are day 13, November 13th. And yeah, so today we get to talk about forgiveness. Yay! We've kind of already talked about this a little bit here and there, but I think forgiveness is one of those things that we could talk about a lot, um, because it sure does creep up, doesn't it? Uh, and it can wreak havoc on your life when you don't forgive. So, today our journal prompt is forgiveness. Who do you need to forgive? And then we're going to write out a letter to them, even if it's for yourself. A letter to yourself, like, I forgive Anne. Hey, I forgive you for. Um, and so, yeah. And then I also want to preface this that these letters probably shouldn't be shared um, to just anyone. So be careful of that. My forgiveness letters I've never shared, and actually, I dispose of them because you don't want to have all that hurt added to it. So, anyway, because this is about you forgiving someone else. And the Bible verse is from Matthew 6:15. But if you do not forgive others their sins, your Father will not forgive your sins. And that just is the whole point. God sent Jesus, his son, down here for us, and he paid the ultimate sacrifice. And so, how could we not just forgive others of offenses? And so, I was going through just kind of thinking about forgiveness because earlier I told you about two of my, revelations of forgiveness. And so I just kind of wanted to just do it as like a blanket of like what you can get. Forgiveness is about just letting go of that hurt, that pain, and releasing that person. And the thing is it's also releasing yourself a lot from that hurt and that pain. Because you're not forgiving them necessarily. Their actions were maybe really poor, ill intent, and mean, and all of that. So it's not about saying, like, that's okay, like what you did was okay. But if you keep holding on to that hurt, then you're also hurting yourself. And an example of that, like for me now, um, okay, this is like really, I tend to do too much information sometimes. So, but I go to the restroom regularly now, like on the daily, and I haven't done that like ever. And so all of this, like, I think I was holding on to so much stress and anxiety, and now I don't have it. Releasing it, like, you know, figurative, figuratively and literally, and I gotta say, it's wonderful. So I don't know how you hold on to your stress. I didn't know that was what I was doing, but apparently that's part of it because my diet and my exercise, nothing else has changed other than now I'm out of the environment I was in and I'm starting to just let go and release. And yeah, so it's been a huge blessing. And so I think if you can get to that space of true forgiveness, is awesome. And then there's the saying I've always heard, um, you forgive, but you don't necessarily forget. And I think there's some amiss in that, depending on the grievance, because I went through some forgiveness stuff years ago, and I remember my husband brought up one of those things that I said, I forgive you for, and he brought it up, and I was like, oh yeah, like I literally forgot it happened. Like it never entered my mind. It never even. And the thing is it was a significant. I'll just tell you what it was. Um, we lived on the Oregon coast for years, and one Thanksgiving he was working down the coast doing some apartments and stuff like that. And it was around the holiday. And so I said, well, with it being Thanksgiving, we want to, be with you as a family. It's like, what if I brought the boys down and we got a hotel near where you're working? And that way we can at least spend, Thanksgiving together and stuff like that. And he said, sure. So I packed up the boys, I found a hotel, went down, and we were hanging out, and he didn't, he was working and working. I didn't hear from him. I'm like, hey, here we are, when you come in, everything else. And he didn't show up for Thanksgiving. And so I went to Walmart because the boys were little, and so we got some meat and cheeses and kind of snacky foods and stuff like that. And that was our Thanksgiving. And we hung out on the beach and stuff like that and enjoyed. And it was hard at the time in the moment, but afterwards I was like, I forgave him for it. And then years later he brought it up, and I was like, oh, like I had forgotten that. And that was like, I mean, it's a holiday. I think it would be something that you would significantly remember or try and hold over or have bitterness towards it or whatever. But because I walked through the true forgiveness of like, I let it go. And so eventually it just went whoop, out of my brain. Even now telling you the story, I'm kind of trying to remember, you know, the whole how it all played out, but I don't. And so sometimes when you can get to that space of forgiveness of those kind of little grievances, because I think what happens is we hold on to some of the wrong things, and it's just hurting your relationship. It's hurting your physicalness, your emotional being, your spiritual, your mental well-being. And why? I mean, really, why? So he didn't make it, and we didn't go out for Thanksgiving. There's a whole lot of worse stuff that could happen. So when you like really start to sit back and look at it, it's like we have got to really start to make a choice to forgive. Because I tell you what, sometimes, especially like bigger grievances, way bigger than that. And of course, in the moment, it felt bigger. Now looking back, it has like very little significance to it. But when you look at big grievances, you know, those thoughts, and that's what I talked about before. When you do the forgiveness, you set it down. Don't pick it back up, because you can go down memory lane and pick up all of the stuff, all of the hurt, all the little nuances, all the stuff. So you got to be very careful when you take down trips down memory lane. You don't go and pick up all that garbage again. You got to just leave it to the side. You got to keep letting it go. So sometimes it takes more of an effort for that, to do that true forgiveness. But I tell you what, it will help your mental, your emotional, and it releases you from that, just like releasing and letting go. And I think there's just a lot going on in life that this is truly a choice we have. you know you've heard the thing where, especially if you go to counseling, they have you draw a circle around you, and then people, closer to you, and your friends, your family, all that kind of stuff. But when you draw that circle around you, they're like, okay, this is who you can control, and that's it. Just you. Just you. Nobody else. You can't control your spouse. You cannot control your children. You cannot control your coworkers, your friends, your neighbors, your family, your parents, your siblings. You can't. But you can control you. And so in that space, that's where you get to choose who you forgive. And so that is your choice. and it's not a comparison thing. And I think sometimes that's where people get stuck is they look at how big the grievance is, and it's like, well, this is huge, so therefore you justify the reason why you won't forgive because the hurt was so deep. So therefore, they deserve me to not forgive them. Well, this isn't about telling them you forgive them. I mean, if you want to do that, great. You can do that. But a lot of forgiveness, it's not about confronting the person. It's about what it's going to do for you and your space and your heart. And that's why writing the letter and not sharing it, because you write out all the stuff you're mad about. And you got to think they have no idea, or they totally know and they're going to totally keep doing it. And so you got to just put up some boundaries, forgive them, and walk away. So that's a whole nother conversation. um, but like, I talked about when I forgave the guy who raped me. He has no idea. I have no desire to see him, to let him know, to have a conversation. None. But I did that forgiveness, and it was for me. It was to give me peace, to give me to release of all of that anxiety and the hurt and the pain. And yeah, the pain has gotten a whole lot better, and I don't go down memory lane of that night. I don't think about it. I don't dwell on it anymore. And it took a process. It took, years to get through that and stuff. But you can get through it. And that's the beauty of God. That is the beauty of his grace, his love, his mercy, his compassion. Because he can, he covers all the sin. All of it. And so if you just release and like, sometimes it is just yourself. Is your own thinking hurting yourself? Is it keeping you trapped? Because sometimes we can create a self-made prison of our own thinking, of our own thoughts, and we get stuck there. And then when you go at the end of your life and you stand before Jesus and he's like, okay, so what'd you do with your life? And you're like, oh, well, I scrolled Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and all of the social media apps for hours, because we get stuck in this like prison and we can't see out. So start by diving into those spaces. And here's another thing that I learned. When, how you get in conversation with friends and you kind of talk about your childhood and you talk about this story and that story, and you start to kind of like, oh, well, listen to my story, listen to what this person said to me, or listen to how this played out. If you keep taking the same story and that is your like one-up story, you have not healed from that story. You are holding on to that thing almost like a badge of honor of like, listen to what this person said to me. Listen to how this person treated me. How could anyone have done something so mean? Because I had one of those stories. Because somebody had said something awful to me. And I was holding on to that story as like a badge of honor of like, oh yeah, you got a story? Let me tell you mine. And God showed me like, you got to let it go. You got to forgive him. You got to release that story. Now, I still have that story and I can still tell that story, but I don't tell it with the same kind of emotion and hurt and pain. I tell it from a learning experience of let me sit with you. I understand where you're coming from. I hear your pain. I hear your hurt because I have had similar things said to me. So I speak now that story through a healed heart. And that's what forgiveness is going to give you. It's going to give you a healed heart. And if you can walk through life with a healed heart, then you are overflowing with love and compassion and mercy for others. And that you start using your stories, those hurts, those pains for good, and you help others, and you're able to sit with them in the pain. You're not going to them in the pain like in Job, where Job was sitting in pain and all of his friends came and they didn't give him good advice. And they're like, come on, buddy, let's go. You know, you sinned, you're a bad guy, now let's go. That's not what those are not the kind of friends we want to be. We want to be the friend that we sit in the pain with our friend, not to sit in the pity party and say, oh, well, listen to my story. Oh, your story? Okay, listen to my story. No, we tell our experience from a healed heart. So that way we help them heal. Not to hold on, not to get revenge, not to be bitter, but to heal. And that's where forgiveness starts. So take time today. What story, what area of your life, who do you need to forgive? Go into those dark, dark places that you're holding on to. Because sometimes once you pull those out, it is the most freeing experience. And that's what I want for you. And I know that that's what God wants for you too. So enjoy and write it all out. Just get it out and then burn it and sit in that peace. And I can't wait to hear how you achieve some peace and you feel the Father's love for you.